Thank you everyone for participating in the general meeting, AIASB general meeting. This is the second general meeting of the year for AIASB. We are very happy that you could attend. And before we start, we want to thank our sponsor for today's program. And the sponsor for today's program is Santa Barbara Association of Realtors. President Brian Johnson is with us today, and thank you, Santa Barbara Association of Realtors. And also another sponsor to make this possible is Ensberg Jacobs Design Incorporate. And thank you, Cass and Tom, for being our sponsor of the month. Thank you very much. And one more person I like to recognize very much is our advocacy committee. They have been working long and hard to make this meeting happen the way it's going to be. And we like to recognize three very hard-working advocacy committee chairs, Cass Ensberg, Alan Belston, and Detty Piker. Thank you so much for making this event happen so smoothly. Thank you so much. Okay, Masu, you are here. Okay, so everybody knows we have a special guest today before the meeting, a very, very, very busy fella, Masu Abelota. And we know Masu has retired from his position as county building official after 10 years. So we thought there's one thing we can do, at least today, to show our appreciation for his service, is that we will present Masu a certificate of appreciation. So Masu, is okay I read it out loud so that all the members can appreciate your service? I'm gonna read it out loud here. The American Institute of Architects, Santa Barbara, presents this certificate of appreciation to Masu Abelota for 10 years of service as building and safety manager in the County of Santa Barbara Building Department, helping architects with the permitting process. June 10, 2021, signed Tai Ye, AIA President, Santa Barbara. So, Masu, I believe you have gotten the original copy of this certificate.
Thank you.
Would you like to say something, Masu?
Well, first of all, I really, truly appreciate this recognition. It means a lot to me. I also truly and sincerely enjoyed working with all of you. And I am sure, you know, the next building official, I don't know if Craig is online, he will continue to have constructive conversation. There is a lot that I'm sure that county can do in building a more smooth and more responsive services to our industry, AAA, engineers, contractors. And it was a true pleasure to get to know you all. And I'm sure that we're going to cross paths here because I'm planning to stay in town. So thanks again. I really appreciate that.
Thank you, Masu. Okay.
I'm going to sign off then otherwise.
Okay. Thank you. So continue the meeting. We do have a new member to AIASB, which is Lowen door and windows. Eve Gilbert. I don't know if Eve, are you here today? Okay, I don't see her, but if there's any other new members that I don't know about, feel free to speak up. Okay, I will close the recognizing the new members. Before we start the meeting, I know many of you have questions about how our chapter has been doing so far this year. Last year has been quite a challenge in terms of member services due to COVID-19 and our financial status. So I just want to give you a brief report that this year, after the COVID last year, we are rebounding and we are doing financially very well compared to last year. Thanks to you, our sponsors. Thank you because of your care. Thank you for all the members that working together to safeguard our chapter financially. And especially want to thank our sponsorship committee for doing such a beautiful job. I think if we continue this trend, I think financially we should be okay by the end of the year, which is a good news. Also, we will be sending out a survey to you as a member to know how you feel about reopening the live events for AIASB. As you know, after June 15th, many of the live events will be reopened compared to before COVID-19. So we are also considering having live programs, which is very exciting, but there are precautions that we have to take. Therefore, we are sending out a survey just to have your opinion, because your opinion matters very much to us. Having said that, we are very excited to announce that the architect tours and the design awards are coming back this year, towards the end of the year. So we are super excited that the programs are coming back alive. So we're looking forward to it. Lastly, we just want to let you know that due to COVID and the equity awareness, social justice last year, we have established a strategic plan task force the first half of the years. And we are very proud to present to you the revised strategic plan to the chapter. And we'd like to present to you by strategic task force chair and co-chair, which is Betty Piker and Erica Abertali. So I'm going to complete my report to you now and give the time and the floor to Betty and Erica to present the strategic plan. Thank you. Betty and Erica.
Thank you, Ty. Yeah, it's a real privilege to be able to present to you the work that we did with this task force. You know, I think we're inspired by the fact that Ty kind of took our strategic plan off the shelf, dusted it off, looked it over, and as wonderful as it was, he realized that very few people really even had a copy of the plan or were aware of it. And very few people in our chapter probably could even cite our mission statement off by heart. So we thought maybe we should figure out a way to make this more of a real living document, one that, you know, that we can connect to in all of our work, you know, every day, and particularly our work as a chapter and as board members of this chapter that are kind of guiding and leading the effort that we undertake on behalf of the community, our community, and of course our members. So we had a couple of teams work on it and really give it a lot of thought, got together, and I'm going to share with you what we came up with so far. Here it is. And this is kind of what came out of it. And even though there are a few words here, but I think they're very powerful words. We took our mission statement and we kind of rethought it, simplified it a little bit, made it more direct and to the point. And this is what came out. The AIA Santa Barbara chapter serves our members, the profession of architecture, and the community by promoting design excellence, professional development, education, and environmental and social equity. I think those are powerful words. And then we took our goals and really drilled down on them and tried to focus them so that they became very present in terms of the activities that we're undertaking right now and the values that we hold dear to us and the things that we want to accomplish. And those goals were distilled down to these 5 points. First, cultivate equity, diversity, and inclusion. Number 2, advance climate action and environmental sustainability. Number 3, educate the community and our membership. Number 4, advocate for positive change in the built environment. And number 5, promote design excellence and local expertise. And we have a whole structure of committees that will fall into one or another of these 5 primary goals. And I'm going to ask Erica to talk a little bit about what's next, which is our implementation plan. So we have these 5 fundamental goals. Now we're going to develop a detailed implementation plan based on our committee structure. Erica, can you elaborate on that?
Yeah, thank you, Dede, and thank you, Ty, for getting this started. This has been a really, informative process. In taking this on, one of the things we recognized as we were coming up with these goals was the strength and the importance of AIASB's committees in accomplishing significant efforts. And so we believe pairing these goals with corresponding committee or committees will be the key to the development of an implementation plan. And then part of, the way in which we structured this was with an intention to move toward a strategic plan that has real and achievable goals and goals that reflect the values of our organization and that are relevant and impactful for ongoing activities in the chapter. So we're hoping this pairing of goals and committees will mean that these things come to the forefront on a regular basis and that we're really looking at where we're heading in a way that's really intentional. So it's exciting what comes next.
And finally, I just want to share with you an idea that Ty brought to the table that we all agreed was a really cool idea, which is to create a business card sized statement of our mission statement and our goals and focus, and of course the implementation committees, something that everyone can carry around with them, put in their wallet or just keep on their desk or something like that. And the idea behind this is just to make this a living document, ever present, something that we can constantly touch back to as we consider the work that we undertake as an organization and as a chapter here in Santa Barbara. So there's a sample. We're going to print that up and distribute it to our membership before too long. And hopefully the end result will be a more powerful, active organization that really moves forward with the goals that we set for ourselves.
Well, thank you so much. Now it's time for our advocacy committee and the panel of guests.
Great, thank you. I would like to just give a quick overview of what the Advocacy Committee has been up to. The co-chairs, as mentioned earlier, are Debbie, Cass, and myself. We've been a busy little group with probably the biggest effort of late has been the Charrette 2020 that we carried out in summer of last year in the middle of the pandemic. We arranged it in a Zoom virtual format and really dug into the issues of downtown. We're the folks who helped to organize today's panel discussion, which is intentional in moving that conversation along from the policy making aspect of it, more in the direction of turning this into reality. Other things that our group has taken on include issues related to the ADU ordinance that the city has developed, engaging with city staff in discussions on objective design standards and AUD downtown amendments. We have numerous people who join us in these efforts, and we create task forces for specific agenda items, and we meet every Monday at 4:30. So anyone who's listening to this and interested in those types of issues and would like to join us, please reach out to Tara and she'll collect your email and include you in upcoming announcements so that you can join us on for our weekly gatherings. I'd now like to introduce Brian Johnson, who's the president of SBAOR, the very generous sponsors of this event that we're having today. Brian, in 2012, turned his focus to multifamily investment property and quickly became a top performer in his field. He specializes in assisting investors in the targeted buying and selling of these properties while helping his clients. While loving being an agent, he's proud to serve as Radius Managing Director, overseeing operations, agents, and staff for 2 offices in Santa Barbara and Ventura counties. Brian, please share with us some of your thoughts from SBAOR as our sponsor.
Thank you, Ellen. I'm pleased to be here today. The Santa Barbara Association of Realtors represents roughly 1,300 realtors throughout the South Coast, and our mission includes engaging in real estate-related community issues affecting our members and their clients who are homeowners, landlords, tenants, and commercial owners. We live, work, and play here, and an important part of what we do is to support the community. We do this in many ways, but I want to take a quick moment to acknowledge the fundraising that we've been able to do so far this year. We've raised over $20,000 for the COVID Relief Fund. Additionally, our Young Professional Network members are building playhouses for underprivileged youth in the Santa Barbara area. We help our local charitable organizations, but we also help people realize their dream of property ownership. The problem we face now is we have no inventory. Right now may not be the best time to evaluate what's going on in the market because, let's face it, the pandemic turned everything upside down. The median sales price without Hope Ranch or Montecito for homes is over $1.5 million right now. And that's up over 35% from last year. Condos are similar. Average price $750,000, which is 15% higher than last year. And the number of homes on the market rose 79% for homes and 91% for condos since last year. That's a lot of turnover right now because people are realizing how important home is. However, the prices are inflating so much because we lack even an adequate amount of supply to meet the needs of our community. That's why our organization has been involved with almost all policy discussions of housing and land use in the South Coast. I'd list out the issues we're working on, but we don't have enough time for that. We are happy to be working with other organizations like AIA that understand the need to increase our housing supply. There's no silver bullet, and we won't be able to fully build ourselves out of this predicament, but we can ease the situation by increasing housing in places that make sense, like downtown. And I'm excited about our esteemed panel today and to hear what they have to say about realizing housing, new neighborhoods, and economic vitality in the downtown area. And with that, I'll turn it back over to you and Cass.
Thank you, Brian. So as a quick introduction to the main event of what we're doing today at this meeting. We have a panel discussion with a lot of diversity within the group. We're really appreciative of that. Know this will be a great discussion to continue our work towards the goal of realizing housing and new neighborhoods in our downtown. The panel speakers will be Robin Elander, Executive Director of Downtown Organization, Rob Fredericks, Executive Director of Housing Authority of the City of Santa Barbara, Peter Lewis, a local developer, Jessica Metzger, Project Planner for the City of Santa Barbara, Anthony Grumbine, AIA, Chair of Historic Landmarks Commission, and Alice Post-Amspoker, representing the Coalition for Neighborhood Schools and Replacement of the Old Lincoln School. With that, I'll turn it back over to Brian, who will serve as the moderator for this discussion. To get the discussion going, we have a couple of prepared questions. Those of you who have additional questions are encouraged to type them into the chat on this, Zoom format, and I will get to those questions towards the end of the conversation. So take it away, Brian. Thank you.
Thank you, Ellen. I appreciate that. So I'm going to start off with just a couple of, hopefully, what are softball questions for our panel today. Keep it broad, and hopefully we'll get some good questions in the chat to pass along as well. So I'll start with just a quick question. What are some of your greatest concerns and challenges to the realization of housing downtown?
Brian, I'm sorry to interrupt, but just before we continue, I did want to mention we're trying to keep to a time frame. This is an intense and important subject for sure, and people will be very passionate about it, but we'd like to keep the responses to around 2 minutes or less than 2 minutes, and I will be keeping time, and I'll probably turn my microphone on, and you'll possibly hear a little chime at the end of the 2 minutes to remind our speakers that there's a lot to discuss, and we want to provide as much opportunity as we can to everybody. Sorry for the interruption there.
No problem. Thanks, Teddy. We appreciate you being the timekeeper and keeping us on schedule. So I'll just open up to the panel here. If anyone would like to start out, maybe Robin, if you'd like to start, you're on top of my list here.
Sure. What was the specific question? Or I have some things I'd love to share regarding that.
So I'd say like your greatest concern and challenges to the realization of housing downtown.
You know, thank you so much, first of all, for having me on this panel. This is a great discussion and also a really wonderful opportunity for me to meet some of the major players in this space. I'm relatively new in my position, only about a year, but some of the things that I think we need to do is really take bold, innovative moves to support development. We need to reuse spaces that are no longer in use. We have a lot of retail spaces that may be able to be reused, office spaces as well. People are definitely looking at ways that they can work in different spaces. Thinking about using parking in a different way. We also really need to think about how things don't have to be perfect in the same way they used to be. There's so many opportunities that we can look at in other cities. I really thought that the recent talk that the Trust held with the Missing Middle presentation with Daniel Paralek was really an excellent breath of fresh air of what's possible. But I think we really just need to not be thinking about all of the aspects that were in the past. We have a completely new slate to look at. Downtown, you know, we didn't expect to have a promenade. We did it, and now people really love it. So we really need to just think about possibilities in a different way, and I can go into some of those specific things a little bit later, but thank you for inviting me to this panel.
Thank you, Robin. Rob Fredericks, how about you? I'm sure you're looking at this very closely.
Yes. one of my biggest concerns, or the housing authority's biggest concerns, is gentrification. The cost of housing downtown would be very high with the cost of land and redevelopment of any site. And I worry about our low-income workers, our service workers, middle-income workers not being able to afford the housing that's built downtown. And I don't think that the inclusionary requirements that currently exist, or what the city is proposing in the future, may propose in the future, would even get us to what's needed to ensure that we have an inclusive neighborhood inside the central business district. So that's my greatest concern, and also about keeping the character, the environment of the downtown area, what makes Santa Barbara special. We always hear about that, and the building designs are going to be very important as we move forward with creating more housing opportunities. So that's what I have to say.
Thank you. Thank you. Peter Lewis. Peter, you're working on a project downtown right now, so you can probably give us some real insight into that.
So, it's interesting. I think to really answer your question, what are the obstacles that's preventing the downtown from having more housing, or why does it not have more housing currently? And, the simple answer is our zoning hasn't encouraged it. And the ability to assemble properties and make projects scalable and feasible is just not there. It hasn't been historically. So, development is an organic process, and if it was feasible, there would be a lot of projects going on right now. Well, why are there not projects going on? It's quite simple. They're just not feasible under the current codes. Now, I think we all recognize that downtown is transforming, or needs to transform if it's going to be revitalized, and so you need boots on the ground to lift up the retail, to help the service industries, and to basically create activity. And traditionally, ours is a traditional town. That night, it gets quiet except for the restaurants that the tourists fill. We haven't built a town for downtown locals, organically, because housing hasn't gone there. And so in my view, the city is making some good, productive moves in the way that they're encouraging a revisit to how we want to look at density and get realistic about what type of density is required to make these things feasible. So I see the biggest obstacles that political will to actually make these things feasible. And everyone talks about housing, but they don't really address the fundamental question is, can somebody actually put it together and build the project? And fortunately, I have found one site, and I look at dozens a year that I'm currently believe will be under development, under construction by this spring.
Thank you. Thank you. Jessica, project planner with the City of Santa Barbara, what can you add to that?
Yeah, thank you. So I can just continue off of Peter's discussion. So in 2013, when we adopted the average unit size density incentive program, we did not target downtown with the highest densities. And part of what happened that was good out of the pandemic last year was our city council really turned and recognized that the downtown is the place for our largest buildings and most of the residents, and would help with the downtown viability. And so they increased the density in the downtown area to the highest density in that trial AUD program. They also eliminated the parking requirements, so a developer could choose to put parking in or choose to put more units in those spaces that were parking previously, and also increased the height to 48 feet by right. Additionally, they directed staff, which is me, I work on housing policy for the city, to look at changing from density, as Peter said, to regulating by floor to lot area ratio. So this would no longer limit a developer from buildings by the number of units they have, but instead regulate the buildings by size of the building. This change also would create more consistency in design for architects here and expand the opportunity for more smaller units in the downtown area. So one of the big words that Peter said, it's nice to go after him because he has so many good things to say, is feasibility. And that's the word that we want to find at the city. So I'm currently in the process of hiring an economic consultant to come and look at the building conditions in the city, including our zoning code, but also land prices and construction prices, and to come back to us after the summer of talking to probably a lot of you in our community and give us what they think the feasibility would be for that perfect floor to lot area ratio number in the downtown, to find that sweet spot of getting more development and more housing in downtown, but also increasing the moderate income units in the downtown and the rest of the city. So we're currently working full steam ahead on that. Thanks, Brian.
Thank you, and we're looking forward to that report as well. Anthony, Chair of Historic Landmarks, maybe you can talk about a little bit of the challenges with, sort of keeping that Santa Barbara vision.
Sure, no problem. So I think part of the biggest challenge is Historic Landmarks Commission. They're the worst. Just kidding. So I think it's easy to kind of now riff off of both Jessica's and Peter's comments because I think there's a lot of really good sort of nuggets there. And this has been a good conversation, for the AIA has been strongly involved with for now almost 5 years with the first charrette and the second charrette. It's also been part of the discussions with the symposiums of the Santa Barbara Trust for Historic Preservation put on 2 years ago and is finishing up now this year as well. And I think that the city is really doing a good job in terms of coming around to this the idea of both zoning and sort of a traditional zoning model that Santa Barbara really is already, and starting to focus on the downtown core. I think that one of the big challenges is going to be really looking at that sort of as a master plan for the city. I know the city, State Street Advocacy Group is a good first step because they're going to be looking at least Chapala and State Street and Anacapa, but are also sort of spinning off of that. We really need to be looking even larger the downtown and really looking at where things are appropriately fit for different size and different densities and how to get housing in all different blocks and streets and neighborhoods. So I think that's a big key part of the effort, because obviously with density and smaller units, your affordability is at least tied to that, and as the AUD program and other programs recognize. So I think that that's going to be where one of the major efforts really that I see needs to be and continue to be. I think it's been a great success story, very slow to turn the battleship around, but it's been a really great success story that the AIA has been a strong part of, and a lot of others in the community. And of course, during that, it's given that we want to keep the character of the Santa Barbara was known for, its great quality of design, which ties to the fifth, I think, of the mission statement that everyone just went over, which is the local quality of design, and for the AIA is one of their jobs to promote. So I think that's where it is. It's good. We're in the middle of things, but things are moving in the right direction. So I think it just needs to keep working on that, especially the zoning side of things.
Thank you for that. And I'll wrap it up with Alice. I think you bring a unique perspective to this with some of the ideas that you've spoken about too.
Well, thank you. I really want to thank the AIA for putting this on. And it's really great to meet all these people from all the panelists and to see all the architects on there. In the opportunities that I have to chime in, I want to kind of frame it in terms of history, present day, and the future. And then the fourth word I want to use is children. So as a neighborhood school advocate, I always look at any kind of public policy through the lens of, is it good for children? If it's good for children, it's good for everybody. And so once upon a time, history, that's what I'm going to start with, there was a school downtown. Lincoln School was on the site of the farmer's market where the police station is being proposed to be built. It was a 2-story, beautiful building along the lines of the same beauty that we have of Santa Barbara Junior High and Santa Barbara High School and La Cumbre Junior High School are beautiful landmarks. Lincoln School was a beautiful landmark right in the center of downtown. It was the first school in Santa Barbara, and it was built in 1874. And it served the downtown neighborhood for 100 years. I'm part of the Coalition for Neighborhood Schools, and it's our mission to rebuild Lincoln School. And we have, I won't go into the details, but there's numerous potential school sites. So our past is that we had a neighborhood there. I want to point out not just the downtown, okay, that's my past. We used to have a neighborhood school in that neighborhood.
All right, thank you for that. And just a reminder to our guests out there in the audience, if you would like to ask a question, you can just put it into the chat, and we'll work around to trying to address that. I just want to move on to a next question real quick. If folks want to maybe give, and Alice, I'll let you start with this because I think you were sort of on that same topic. Describe how State Street could feel when transformed into a multi-generational neighborhood with people living, shopping, playing, and going to school downtown, on State Street or just off.
Great, thank you. Well, I do want to point out that we can talk about downtown in 2 ways, and I really would like to kind of send everybody home with this thought. The downtown corridor of just like State Street and whatever, Chapala and Anacapa and those 10 blocks, that's a neighborhood, but it's within a broader neighborhood, which I call downtown, which the landmarks of that neighborhood you'll know very well. Trinity Church on Mitchell Terrena and State is kind of at the top end of that neighborhood. The Staples building that is being in development is at the bottom of the State Street end of that. From east to west, it's all the way from 101, these beautiful neighborhoods along Castillo, all the way to Milpas and the McDonald's on Milpas and Mason. So as Santa Barbarians, I think you can picture that place. I drove it Saturday just to drive up and down and take pictures of all the housing in that, what I call the downtown neighborhood, the broader neighborhood. And it's just the most beautiful neighborhood in the world. It has sidewalks, it has big houses, it has little houses, it has apartments. It's got history. All 90% of the buildings are old houses. 10% are this new construction that's come in the last 20 years. It's all pretty nice. But what's missing is the most important ingredient of a neighborhood, which is a school, a neighborhood elementary school. That's what brings people together in community, in fellowship, crosses all political bounds, all economic, racial, ethnic bounds. Neighborhood schools are what bring people together.
Thank you. Thank you. Moving back, staying on that topic, if we could, Jessica, what's the city working on to sort of, try and create a vision for State Street?
Thank you, Brian. Although the Community Development Department hasn't been involved right now in the vision for State Street, we have had a subcommittee of council members, and I think I saw a couple council members on this call as well, who have worked on State Street and are forming a group of citizens and residents from the community to move forward with what we want the vision of State Street to be in the future. And so those applications have come in and the people are being appointed over the next 2 months. So once that group starts, in the budget for the next fiscal year, there are 2 additional positions that are being created in the Community Development Department to deal strictly with State Street and its future. So that's the commitment we've done for State Street so far.
Thank you. Thank you. Peter, I've seen sort of, prelim designs of your project, but expand a little bit on that, and what would State Street look like in your mind's eye?
Well, what I hope we get to is more of a mixed neighborhoods, and Alice's point is really interesting, because if you really look at downtown, what's happened in the last 40 years since the closing of that school, downtown was offices, retail, and some entertainment, and it primarily served the tourists at night. So the town kind of folded up its sidewalks at night. When I had a manufacturing company in the 80s, there was only one restaurant open after 9. And that really hasn't changed that much since then. So my vision would be, if we can get the housing component as an important part of the buildings, repurpose a lot of these antiquated retail and office buildings, we can bring citizens that live there as well as work there, create energy for the locals to want to come there. And this creates the neighborhood that Alice talks about, right? I mean, right now it's not a neighborhood, it's a commercial district that lacks the intimacy of neighbors during the evening. So, it's not going to be without a lot of heartache and a lot of effort and a lot of political will from the council is really what's required to change, because assembling these properties is an enormous task. And everyone wants, this thing to be done, but nobody really wants to address the elephant in the room, which is costs. You can't make these affordable. You're not going to build these for our service personnel. It's just not realistic. So my hope is we end up with a vibrant neighborhood as Alice depicts. And it's an interesting question of a neighborhood walkable school. I mean, I think it's, it would be a great component.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that. Robin, let me ask you to, maybe share your thoughts on that, that vision of State Street a little bit.
Absolutely. Well, all of this is just so exciting to think about and to envision together. I keep coming back to the fact that so many people have spoke of community. And so downtown is special already because it has this sense of space. But as we create more housing and as we create more diverse spaces to enjoy not only during the day but into the evening and have those neighbors there, there's really not this concept of people saying, I'm going downtown, or I'm coming downtown, or I've haven't been to downtown for quite some time, things are different but I haven't seen it. People will be part of it on the regular. They will be walking to their office, to different spaces, and there's going to be a different sense of community and connection and kind of crossover of activities some of the things I think could be considered as ways to get some of these projects either developed or thought about possibly in a different way is just how to diversify income streams as part of it. So including things like for new projects, including workshops and tours of the space to show off the accomplishment. Having people like yourself, sustainable designers, and build in marketing for those sustainable designers and create kind of this live work space. And not only that, but even consider, because we're doing so many special things and Santa Barbara is such a uniquely interesting place, and that we're trying to kind of go bolder and more innovative differently and green and move towards a carbon neutral city. Turn it into a TV series. Have all of these amazing people who are building and trying to create these new spaces. Consider that. Also consider interesting things like we have a local company that makes these things called Zen dens, but including innovative things that people can share in the use of the spaces like these spaces. And I'll stop. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for that. All right, so I want to turn to Rob. Maybe if you've got a quick vision that you'd like to share for State.
Yeah, well, I love what's been said. Alice's vision is wonderful, and it would be wonderful to have more family housing opportunities downtown to make a wonderful neighborhood. In fact, the building behind me is Casa de las Fuentes, which I consider the outer part of the CBD. It was developed by Detty Pikert, and it's affordable workforce housing. And so it can be done, but it requires subsidy and some other giveaways. And what I'm concerned about the revitalization and of downtown is it will require some upzoning, but there's the tension. The upzoning, to me, if you go with FARs and go with higher FARs, is that it will increase land costs, and thereby increasing, again, the whole development cost and locking people out of being able to buy or rent downtown. And I'm really concerned about Santa Barbara becoming a little Monaco where, oh, well, you could work here, but you can't live here, sorry. So that's what I have to say on that. Sure,
important parts of it all. Anthony, real quick, anything to add to that?
Sure. Yeah, I think that I guess the only little piece I would add would be that having my own personal experience with it was with this sort of similar setup. And I think the idea of a school downtown is intriguing, but it's also it's interesting that there used to be one there, which is a good indication of the story of Santa Barbara, where it was actually even more dense of a city in a lot of ways, in a lot of pieces, that things have been torn down and turned to parking lots, which I think is a net negative. But sort of along that line, there was a time when I was in grad school, my wife and I, back when we only had 4 kids, but we were living in the heart of Rome with no car, just 1 story up on a little piazza in a 2-bedroom apartment. And we walked everywhere. There was a school around the corner. It was a semester of really understanding what a traditional city could be. And actually, it was very family friendly, and there were families that hang out in the piazza all the time. So it really showed me that the way that we were used to thinking about things in American cities is really, it doesn't have to be that way at all. And I think that this is a good opportunity that Santa Barbara can bring some of that school factor back into the downtown, and it does help to revitalize. So, and that's why you also need piazzas for kids to kick a ball around.
That's awesome. I'd love to see more piazzas like that. Okay, so we've got a few questions from the audience. I appreciate everyone's input on those so far. This is a directed question to Jessica. Jessica, if you could please address parking and automotive impact on development. How can we develop housing outside of the limitations currently imposed by the parking requirements?
Yes, thank you, Brian. So in 2020, we actually got rid of the parking requirements for residential housing and multifamily in the downtown central business district. So that was in direct response to the fact that parking was impacting the development and how many units you could get into that building square footage. So we have addressed that there. In the areas outside of the city, there are still parking requirements, but we will be asking our economic consultant to look at other incentives besides just the floor to lot area ratio that we might want to recommend changes to when we bring forward that study to City Council.
Thank you. And a quick follow-up on that while I've got you is, has the city looked at any financial incentives so far for housing in the downtown, such as creating a tax increment district with specific incentives for affordable housing, as other cities have done? And given the inflated cost value of existing properties downtown, it's going to be a challenge attracting private investment that can produce affordable housing.
At this point in time, that hasn't been a discussion at the city level. The last couple legislative sessions at the state level did have bills to bring back the redevelopment agencies' capacity in the state, and we support that because that's where that partnership would come from again. And before the redevelopment agencies were disbanded, that's how we worked to get more affordable housing across the city. So that's something to think about.
Thank you for that. Again, opening up the chat for more questions. I saw a question about, knowing that there's a robust existing design review in place to make sure projects adhere to community character. What would the ideal FAR and building height to promote needed affordable housing? Is that something you're still working on with the study, or could you comment on that?
Yes, so we're still working with the consultant to see which of those FAR metrics are feasible for housing to continue to encourage developers to build more housing and to encourage them to build more moderate income into their projects. And then as far as building height, last year, the City Council increased the building height in the downtown, actually per a suggestion from the AIA, to 48 feet. And there's kind of a misconception that's being thrown around the community a lot right now that we're looking to change the building height to 60 feet. You can go to 60 feet now, and that has been an ability of a developer to request for the last 10 years with a community community benefit project that's either rental housing or affordable housing. The findings have to be made by the Planning Commission, so it does include an additional hearing, but that's on the books now. That's not something we're looking to change to. It's already currently part of the code.
Okay, thank you. Peter, if I might also direct that question to you. Do you have a thoughts on, ideal FAR or building heights?
So yeah, I think realistically, you need to be well over that 48 feet to make things feasible, and you need to be approaching 60 feet. You need 4 stories, plus you need some parking if you choose to have some on the ground floor. Ultimately, that gives you essentially a 4-story structure. It's tight to do that within 48 feet. So I think, again, it depends on how the city uses the calculation of a FAR, because there's been several different definitions of FAR. But if you think of a 4-story building being the basic foundation under which things are feasible, kind of drives the height. Okay.
Thank you for that. I really just want to get a quick follow-up on that with Anthony, if I might. Anthony, looking at building heights, is there a way of, sort of approaching that 60-foot level that it looks like we can go to in certain instances, but yet still retain the character of Santa Barbara and downtown?
Well, sometimes we think 2 stories is too tall, so I don't know. So I think it's an important question, a super important question in terms of height. FAR, of course, is a little bit of a tricky, it's only half the picture, so how you play that out is the other half, and how then things like parking and costs and ways to actually get it built is a whole nother part of that question. But in just looking at height, I think it is going to be important to keep the character of Santa Barbara. And I've been a strong, probably most of you on this have known, I've been a strong proponent of looking at the historic drawings that was what was supposed to be Santa Barbara, what was being proposed to be, but it was never built because the earthquake actually damaged things and brought things down in terms of height. And they were proposing 3- and 4-story, 50 to 60 foot elevation drawings in the 1920s, even before the earthquake and after. Now that wasn't what was built, and there's something to be said that there is a historic component, but not all the buildings, most actually probably half or more wouldn't qualify as historic resources. However, we still need to respect them in some ways. So then it becomes on a case-by-case basis, the location and how things play out, and if you have a little 1-story or 2-story right next to you in terms of your site, and then going up really high, it has a sort of a jarring effect. So many of the good architects, many on this in this meeting, have been able to be careful about it and maybe do a 2- or 3-story next to the 1- or 2-story, and then step back and get some more density up above, and without being too much of a wedding cake effect, which is also not good to wedding cake up to a pyramid. So it is a complex issue. It is hard to say a one-size-fits-all approach, but I do think that some strategies need to be come up with, especially as objective design standards and the state kind of removes ability for design review to even comment on things. I think we're going to have to figure that out as we go forward. But it's a key part of the trickiness to it, to keep both the quality of Santa Barbara and the character with still getting a lot of height and density added.
Thank you. Thank you. Rob, a question for you. Any plans, to use city parking lots to provide housing for a variety of income levels? And I'll let Jessica respond after you.
Yeah, so right now we are working on, which has been agreed to by the city already, is to work on the Carrillo Castillo commuter lot for moderate to middle income housing there, rental housing. And we're just about ready to finalize our talks on the funding piece, which is really difficult. There's no subsidy to keep the rents low enough, even for moderate income, to make a project pencil. So even with the city giving the land for that use, we're having to work with an altruistic investor to keep their rate of return low enough. So we're working on that, and hopefully we can get that built and show it to be a success, and model that on other city lots. And one of my thoughts is to make a varied development, so where we have part of it a third moderate to middle, and a third low income. I would love to see that type of development occur, and utilizing city-owned land.
Thanks. Jessica, anything to tack onto that?
Yeah, I would just say that someone asked about tax increment financing, and we don't have the money to give currently as the city, but we do have that land. And I look forward to seeing the success of Rob's project. And I encourage people to approach us if they have ideas, because through the studies that we've done on parking in downtown, our lots and parking garages are not fully utilized. So we don't need as many as we have currently. And so it's an opportunity that we can get more housing in our downtown.
Sure. Not sure what's going to happen with the old police station when the new one's built, but maybe that's a good location. Question from the audience, and I'll open this up to everybody. How can State Street and the CBD be an inclusive and mixed neighborhood if only 10% of the housing being built is affordable to those at the moderate income level? And how can we create vibrancy downtown without being inequitable in who can afford to live there? So, little equity question for everyone. Jessica, you want to start, and then I'll just sort of roll through?
I can start. So currently the inclusionary requirement is 10%, as that person stated. That was passed in 2019 due to the fact that we hadn't gotten, well, we have 4 moderate income units in the entire city. But through this study that we're going through this summer, we hope to refine that number and look at that number as maybe not a blanket across the city, but different in different areas, because different projects will have different land costs, which affect feasibility. So that will all come out in the study.
All right, thank you. Robin, I'll direct that to you. Any thoughts from the DO on inclusivity?
I think that's a really good question, and it's hard to answer, but I think that what Rob Fredericks brought up earlier about the being able to have mixed housing types within one project and using city-owned land gets going in the right direction, because it would allow for the project to closer to pencil out for someone by having, you know, the penthouse here and having some smaller spaces in there, but also having it be in the neighborhood and walkable to the greater downtown space. And if there's multiple projects like that, it really starts to make more sense. So I think I like that Rob and Jessica are looking at both of those.
Thank you. Thank you. Peter, care to share your thoughts?
Well, I think Jessica could really opine on this probably better than anyone, in the sense that she sees the numbers. You know, we started an AUD program that brought a lot of applications. The council actually got a little, through political pressure, concerned about the proliferation of those projects, actually made it, disincentivized it with an inclusionary element. And a lot of those that have been entitled are no longer planning on being built. And the reality is, to build a new, in the private sector, not what Rob is hoping to do with some subsidies, but in the private sector, to build a unit is going to cost probably $300,000, and it's going to be small. There's nothing inherently affordable about that number. So the only way that makes it affordable is if the public wants to get involved in subsidizing that. So that's essentially our problem. It's not by design affordable. So if you insist on it, a component of it to be affordable, the market just have to absorb that cost. So you drive up the costs on the market and you subsidize the lower end. And to me, it should be very simple. The public needs to focus. It's expensive here. It's always been expensive here. And as long as we continue to hold down inventory, we're creating more difficult environment.
Thanks. Rob, I'm gonna let you come after that.
Yeah, it's what Peter said is correct, and it's difficult. It's going to be difficult no matter what. We plan for having those mix of incomes downtown, living in the downtown area, but it's something that our housing authority is committed to finding solutions. I don't want to say the word sales tax, but maybe there's a piece of sales tax that can be increased to go towards an affordable housing fund that can help subsidize some of the needed units. So that's all I have to say on that. All
right. And Alice, I haven't forgotten about you. Schools could certainly potentially help with inclusivity, but I want to hear your thoughts.
Well, I'm going to shift over to this topic of housing and taxation and then government, because that's the question. One idea I have, and one thing that concerns me, is that there are so many houses in Santa Barbara that are unoccupied. And I believe we should tax unoccupied homes. Very wealthy people who come and buy a second home here, and they don't live here. They're not contributing to our community by having children in our schools or creating businesses or shopping at the businesses. They're just having an empty house that they come to every once in a while. So I think that there should be regulation I'm gonna go really far out here. I think every single residence should have to have a designated occupant. And if they won't provide an occupant, then tax them very heavily. They're going to buy a $5 million house and not live in it. Then instead of having a 1% property tax, create a city tax of 1% on their property value, and you're going to double your property, the equivalent of your property tax. That would bring in income. You can then put that towards giving developers incentive to building, making house as Peter said, it's not by design affordable. So how are we going to wedge something in? I would say taxation. I know I've heard that there's an astounding number of empty houses, and I think that is just crime. I think it's criminal. It's not right.
Thank you. Anthony, I'll let you wrap that up. Take us into the home stretch on that question.
No problem. Well, we can get it more affordable if we just made it a lot uglier. So let's just uglify our city, and then it'll be cheap. But no, seriously, it's a very interesting question on the equitable front because and inclusivity. When you look at traditional cities, and this goes back to the Piazza comment as well, and for Santa Barbara, the Plaza, and the public realm, and the way in which we already have sort of the paseo systems and the plazas and all kinds of outdoor and the beach and public spaces. And so I think as you develop more the downtown, and as you get those, as long as you keep the public spaces public, and you make, and then that is where, and as long as you have good transportation and other methods that means that you don't have to, you roll by the car. That's also where and that's also a civic duty and civic responsibility, which cities throughout time have always seen it as theirs. That's where you have this public zone where everyone is welcome. And so even if that person doesn't live right there in that neighborhood, but if you make it an amenity that all in the city realm can share, that's also a strong way in which this becomes a public good and a public place. And so I think that State Street, as we've seen in this last year, very much has become part of that playing out of things where people will go there, the locals will go and enjoy a space, even though it's not very well organized and it's messy. They'll still enjoy a space that is now very much a public amenity. And so I think that's also another way in which inclusivity can play a strong role in this. Thank you.
All right, we're getting close to our time here, and we don't want to take any more anyone's day up further but we want to have one last question, and maybe if we can limit it to just a quick answer, maybe a minute for each of you. Our process also adds to the cost. So how can we further simplify that process that can ultimately reduce the overall cost and make affordability more possible? Anthony, do you want to lead off?
Sure, I'll lead off with as a architect here in town and having to deal with the process on the other end, on the client's end of things. I think it's a very, very valid question, and quite frankly, I think that there's a huge amount of soft costs and our office has multiple offices across the country, so we see a differentiation between our offices in California, our offices in the East Coast and around. And California has created structures, in Santa Barbara it's not that much different than LA and a lot of the places that we work, but it is a little bit different. There's a little extra soft cost, but California in general just has a huge amount of soft costs that go into all the regulation and everything. And so from that end of things, I don't think that there's much of a difference between Santa Barbara and elsewhere in Southern California for sure, and Northern California as well. Some places it's a little easier, but I think it's more of a California issue in terms of that. And I don't think the little extra regulation or review boards or things like that we have that other places might not. I think that just keeps our quality up. That's a drop in the bucket compared to the overall cost of a project. And I think that most of the architects here watching this know how to get through the process locally. And yeah, you have to know the nuances of Santa Barbara and how we like things, what we like to do. And for out-of-town architects, that might be a bigger struggle as they learn our language and learn the way which we like our buildings to feel and look and be spec'd. So yeah, sorry, a little long, but I think that's kind of, yeah, that's my answer to the process question.
Thank you. Thank you. Peter, I'm certain you've got comments on this. How can we simplify?
Well, I think the departments are trying to address that, and I think they're going to make headway there. I'm pretty convinced they've made headway in planning. I entitled this project in 10 months that I'm going to be building next spring. That's an improvement over prior projects, maybe by 30%. That's significant. I think the building department is the next area that they're hoping to improve, and I think they can get there. But that's not going to be a game changer, but it's important because perception is also a problem. They assume everything is years. It's really not years, but it's an aggravating process. And I'd like to finish. I was intrigued by Alice's comment. There is no doubt we have a ton of underutilized real estate because of second, third, and fourth homes in this city and county. I have a family home on a cottage on Lake Michigan, interestingly enough, that gets taxed at a totally different rate than the locals. And in my opinion, it's not a bad solution to a county that needs money from people that don't use the full services, but tax it during a very narrow time of year. So in terms of equity, that is a low lying fruit in my eyes. Something that I know that realtors is not going to like, but it is an interesting question for equity.
We're sweating right now, Peter. I wasn't expecting that from you, but I appreciate it. I appreciate the open honesty there. Okay, Rob Fredericks, simplifying the process.
You know, I'm not going to take up too much time. Exactly what Anthony and Peter said. So.
All right, thanks. Jessica, what can we do?
Well, the state has already helped a lot with this because in 2019 in the Housing Crisis Act, they limited the number of hearings once you have a complete application to 5. So you can no longer go past that, even if you don't have the approval. So they're chipping away at these problems as well. And I just want to say one more thing. As a planner, there are a lot of vacancy taxes out there across the United States, and they work just for the second and third homes.
Thank you. Thank you. Robin, are you hearing any thoughts, any ideas from your members on how to simplify or even just the perception of maybe shortening up the process, or is it happening and folks are starting to see it?
Good question. I think that there has been challenges in the past. I am hearing that is changing, but I think we need to not only market the fact that things are different and changing, and the more positive things that are happening in that space need to be spoken of widely so that people know that things are changing and it's worth trying, and just making sure that those city planning processes that obviously the team here is working on are working quickly enough to support the developers who are making those strong financial risks to make these things happen, because they need to be respected and they need to be honored for what they're contributing to our community, because it is a big risk they're taking.
Thank you. Thank you. Alice, I don't know if you have anything you'd like to add, but I'm certain that you're smiling because you've opened up a great conversation with Peter and with Jessica on that tax thing. So
10-second comment.
Yes.
Number one, their attitude at the city should be, how can I help you?
Great idea. Great
and
idea.
The second is granny units. The most efficient possible way to create low affordable housing.
And you're seeing ADU is a very popular set of initials right now. With the granny flats / mother-in-law, the ADUs are really coming along. And with that, I want to thank each and every one of you for your participation today. I'm going to turn it back over to Ty, who I'm sure is going to thank you as well. And thank you to the audience for your questions. Ty, back to you.
Thank you, Brian. This has been a very educational, very exciting experience with all the honorable guests here. We're hoping this kind of dialogue can continue in the months to come. And AIASB is very honored and proud to be your partner to make this community better. And thank you for all